recess budget session. So we have a motion to resume. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Okay. Do you want to start, or do you, how do you want?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have previously distributed the recommended budget. We have that recommended budget presentation up on the screen. I'm not proposing to go back through it unless there are questions that we can refer back to. We have a couple other documents that we can pull up if we need to. One thing that some of you did, you forwarded questions to us earlier. We took those questions and turned it into about I think it was about 18 pages, 17 pages. Staff members assisted in trying to put those responses together, and so the various departments helped kind of pull that response document together. We sent that out yesterday. We can go back through and talk about any of those answers as you would like. One thing that I would recommend that we spend a significant amount of time on tonight, or however much time we can allocate to it, is the discussion about external agencies and the approach to that, because we really would like to get that number finalized, whatever it is and however it's allocated, so that we can make sure that the budget ordinance as it's printed for the next meeting reflects the accurate number. If there are any other major changes, we need to probably work toward getting those done sooner than later. We have as you know, the public hearing on the 13th. That gives an opportunity to hear another input from our residents as to the budget. The budget certainly can be changed after that point in time, but the sooner we can get to a final number, the better, as we work toward getting the final budget ordinance prepared. So with that, I would be happy to work with staff and respond to questions as you have those. If there are questions, or if you want to move through the budget just by department and say, are there questions in administration or whatever, if you want to take that approach to it, we can do that. And then also talk about capital projects as needed.
So, just to be clear, we're on a path of the strategic decisions around where to invest in infrastructure, roads, parks, et cetera. You need more time to do the assessment of that. That comes up in our August budget retreat, all those things. And so we really need to close on those things today, or have a good discussion. We can't make a final decision. You mentioned outside agency. There's a couple of other things in there. We suggested, a stipend increase. Are we doing certain things or not? Are they in or are they out? Just so it's clear. And then the rest of it is just, anybody has any questions on the feedback, which, by the way, from a personal basis, I think you guys did a great job in responding to the questions and getting some clarity. I think all the staff should be commended for the work. I know that is not easy when you get a bunch of cryptic notes from people like us, so I include myself in that. So it's hard. You don't know what we're thinking or whatever, but I thought you guys did a great job of pulling that together. So
let me make one comment about, I think a question that arose had to do with sidewalks. There is one large sidewalk project that is not reflected in the budget that we expect will be added to the budget at a certain point in the future, and that's the county's community development block grant that has been tentatively awarded. And so as that moves forward, there would be a budget amendment that would show that project come into the budget at that time, but it's not reflected today in the document that's before you.
But you do have $150,000 worth of capital improvements in sidewalks. That's already in the budget.
That's correct.
So, and the reason that question came up, and this is a historical thing, perspective, sidewalks obviously are an issue for a lot of people, but sidewalks were used as a lever to get people to annex in the 2006, 2007, 2008 time frame. And so we get asked questions from time to time, where are we with sidewalks? And so being aware of what the game plan is, not at the detail level, but the game plan is important, because we do get asked that question from time to time, just because it's out there. And it's a fair question for people to ask that when they made decisions like that. So, well, shall we tackle outside agency? Try to get one off the list? I think you'd probably be happy with that, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So,
And that's on page 37 for reference.
Does anybody want to weigh in initially, or you want me to stir the pot? So, perspective. 2 years ago, we had no policy. It was purely individually, an individual focus. It's not good or bad, it's just we didn't have a policy. First year in, Warren put a financial policy in place primarily to audit, so we understood where where the money was going and what they were using it for. Now we have that input back, and now what we've uncovered is we probably can do a better job in terms of the purpose. One thing that I will raise, that I checked back with our town attorney on, there's a couple in there that indicate that they give scholarships. That in a legal sense, we probably need to go back and examine where they give scholarships, because by statutory law, we are not allowed to play in the educational space. And if they're doing that, that's just a pass-through. And so we need to probably investigate that. And I can't recall off the top of my head which ones were doing that. And that could be just a reallocation and stuff like that. But I thought the Women's Club, I can't say this for certain, the Arts Council, and there was one other that was doing it, but we need to go back and tell them that's kind of that gray area where you're stretching the limits of the law if we decide to fund them. So, so there was a couple of suggestions on the plate, on the table. I threw out to all of you in a note that maybe what we do is we start with no increase for anybody, and that gets us down to at least 50,000, and then we explore the question that Commissioner Burrell raised as to, are there groups that we do not want to fund, or do we wait until August with those and actually do the digging and the research as to understand their purpose? I'll put it out there. One of them is the Andrew Jackson Historical Foundation, and that one we've got a report back from our past Park and Rec director that was a relationship that had not moved along to the extent that the town had hoped. We also know that they have been granted not a grant, but full-fledged $300,000 that from the state. That not sure just exactly how that is being spent yet. We have a new Parks and Rec director that probably wondering what is this mess that I have to go solve, et cetera. So that was one of them, and I can't remember the other two, Commissioner Burrell, but that was on the table, and with an eye towards getting it down to 35,000. So those things are out there. Who wants to talk and who wants to make suggestions, recommendations?
I'll recommend something.
Okay.
At first, I looked at all of these things. I've gone through this book, and I do want to say we, as a board, we put this out there, or as a town, we put it out there for people to send their applications in, not with an expectation that everybody's going to get what they ask for or that they're going to get anything. So when I went through this little list that, I think you put this out, I came up with, in reading all of the information in the book, I came up with to keep in the Artists Music Guild, the Humane Society, Turning Point, and Waxhaw Arts Council, and that's it.
Could you repeat those? Artists Music Guild, Humane Society.
Humane Society, Turning Point, which I will say I think Turning Point is a really important place to give some money to, and I don't think any taxpayer would deny that. But they are denying some of the others from some that I've talked to, and the Waxhaw Arts Council.
There's 4 of them. What was Artists Music Guild, Humane Society, Turning Point, Waxhaw Arts Council. Commissioner Fitzgerald.
I'd like to make a comment about the Andrew Jackson. I can tell you what they're spending the money on that they got from the state. They have put new siding on the back of the building and on the two sides. They have put new roads into their complex. They refinished the roads into their complex. They are planning on staining the front of the building. They have already succeeded on painting the entire inside of the building. They've redone the floors in the lobby and in the room adjacent to the lobby. I can't remember what they call that, the project room or whatever it is called. And they put laminate floors in because they had carpet in, it's less maintenance. They're putting insulated windows on the front of the building that were fogged up. And it's mostly all maintenance issues. They also want to do a arbor of such to that would be attached to the existing old concession stand. That's about an 80-foot arbor, so they could have other events out there. That they consider that a maintenance thing, but I think that's a new construction that they're building next to it because they're attaching to the thing. They've done a lot of things. They are starting to come around. We're a good partner with them. I think we're starting to work together better. I agree with a lot of the things that Commissioner Stewart talked about, but I would recommend we put the money in the Union County Arts Council because we get more money back from that because it goes to our children's education in the classrooms. The Waxhaw Arts Council is more or less an individual guild per se. And I don't know how much we're going to get back from that. The other things that are on here, I don't know if we really need to go to that. There was some things that we talked about, the women's club, that we have events there, that we have free rentals. Also with the Andrew Jackson Foundation, we have free rentals too. So there's two things that we probably need to think about. Maybe not fully fund what they're asking for, but reduce it slowly down because they're counting on that money for their operating budget, not for a maintenance budget. The things that they've done out to Andrew Jackson was the maintenance has been pushed off until it's almost falling apart. So that's why they needed the $300,000 from the state.
Respectfully, the $300,000 though wasn't to go towards maintenance, and so they repurposed it. And quite honestly, as a town, I don't want to be in the middle of a battle between the state and the Andrew Jackson Society at all. The state has tried to get us to manage that. I don't think it's in our purview to be managing the state's budget when it's allocated like to them, and I personally just feel strongly we shouldn't be in the middle of that. I get that they've probably done some of that. If we're going to do anything, I would suggest we get a full accounting from the state, because as of a month ago, you may know that, but the state budget had no record of it being used for anything. So, and I don't want to be in the middle of managing that. I don't want Greg in the middle of managing that garbage.
I understand. I've
that's-
just been out there. I'm the
Yeah, I
kind of
know.
liaison for the board. I'm out there all the time. I make sure things are going good for them.
And the
I'm
flip
trying-
side is they're doing the Y stuff this summer too.
Right.
Program. So
And they
it's a
got
tough one.
They got Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts camping out there now too. And we do have the option of using their space too. So I think we should fund some of it.
So following Commissioner Fitzgerald's, sorry, it's been a long day. Commissioner Fitzgerald's train of thought on that, we as a board have given direction already for a memo of understanding to be drafted. And I don't know where that currently sits as far as, I know that we've said, they didn't sign it, they weren't going to sign it, they might have signed it. Maybe we can give direction to the manager through the Parks and Rec director to bring that to the August retreat with a finalization or a where we stand on that. And earmark the funds, but hold them based on what we hear at the retreat. And because again, this board as a consensus did go forward with the memorandum of understanding on the joint use and so forth. And I think if that hasn't played out yet, we should at least owe that to play out to see where they stand on that.
So I'm just gonna put my other foot in my mouth here. We got a report back, and I sent it to everybody, from Natalie saying this has not worked out well. So this is the proverbial or get off the pot time for us. Are we going to say no money until you do what we ask? No money, period? I get their importance and all that stuff, but if I'm listening to Commissioner Fitzgerald, the state wanted whatever you call that, amphitheater. They're getting siding painted. We asked for a memorandum of understanding, and the Parks Director, as she left, said we can't get that executed. So there's something awry here, and I feel uncomfortable putting a dime out there until we understand exactly what the heck is going on. And to me, it's not, could you come back? It's either we have an agreement and we know what that agreement is, and it fits the purpose of the town of Waxhaw, and then we'll give you money, or not.
So again, earmark the money and wait for their response through the manager.
Earmark how much money?
Well, that's a different discussion.
Well, that's what we got to decide.
Right, I get that. I'm just saying.
And they said they needed 19,000 to survive from us,
I thought the request was 18.
or 18,000, okay.
But survival's not the idea of our money.
I get that, but
That's, survival, that's not, our money is not to make them survive. That's what you pay dues for. Same way it goes for the women's club too.
completely agree, completely agree.
How long has the 300,000 from the state been available and not used?
It's into its second year, because they had to reallocate it in the budget.
And that was a second submittal. Originally, there was supposed to be matching funds, and they couldn't do
Yeah,
that.
so this, actually, Jim, is the third,
Yeah.
because there was a matching funds grant and they didn't get to that. Then they came forward with the 300,000, they didn't get to that, and so they reallocated in the budget. And now they're spending the money, so.
Got a comment.
Commissioner Burrow.
Okay. When I sent my responses in, there were 3 of these that I did not want to fund. The museum, the Women's Club, and the Waxhaw Arts Council. And I based it on the spreadsheet that I did, but also in the back of my mind, I was considering the $300,000 and sort of a lack of accountability, or a feeling that someone needs to be accountable for not just our money, but the money that's come from the state. And also just a feeling on my part that there was a sense of entitlement from some of these people requesting. And then I looked again to see which of these agencies serviced or provided service directly to citizens of Union County and Waxhaw in particular. And I actually took away some points for those groups that serviced people or provided services to people in South Carolina, Mecklenburg County, and a wider area. I mean, our money is for Waxhaw citizens, maybe Union County citizens just outside of it. Okay, and that's sort of stretching it, but I agree with Commissioner Stewart. I think Turning Point, and I said it in my comments, any money we save, I wouldn't mind reallocating to Turning Point that is professional, provides a very needed service to anyone that, any citizen of Waxhaw or Union County that needs it. and they cooperate with our police department, with our fire department, with CMC. I mean, and they're accountable. So those are I don't see funding the museum, the Women's Club, or our Waxhaw Arts Council. And I've kind of up in the air about the Artist Music Guild and Ava's Gift to June because of their widespread clientele.
Yeah, and just as a point of clarification, in that same note that I sent you from Ms. Jackson, the Artist Music Guild was the one that was the most cooperative with the Parks and Rec in terms of cultural events, and the monies they used actually were targeted towards students in the Waxhaw school system, as well as bringing a whole bunch of different things down to, they weren't as successful with the music in the fall. They were far more successful for Black History Month. They brought to the museum a bunch of their collectibles down. And again, I'm not making a value judgment.
No.
Natalie said, of all that we worked with, that was by far and away the one that actually did the most work in support of the town and the town's
Yeah.
cultural mission.
And
So,
to those last two that I mentioned, the Music Guild and Ava's Gift to June, I'm open to, consideration for them because of what they have done. And I know I appreciate the email that you sent. That is correct.
Jim?
I'm glad you said that, because I had the Artists Music Guild. They have a bunch of little stuff over in Monroe. I didn't see anything for Waxhaw on that list. I mean, other than maybe a few of our kids go over there, but
Yeah, they actually, and I participated in one of them, they actually take their program, if you participate, and they take it to the high school, and they actually did some work at both Parkwood and Cuthbertson as part of the band classes. Bring musicians to them, let them play in the band classes and stuff like that, and get the kids more involved, as well as book bags for all of them, et cetera.
as just a step one over on Ava's Gift. Ava's Gift is that's just we're just a fundraising media for them. I mean, they just take money and they give it out to people in need. That's nice. I feel all great, and these are people, mothers in needs. It's kind of, it's one of those things that, like, I kind of get offended that somebody's taking my money and deciding where you're going to send it without a specific, other than they are cancer needs. I mean, that's what they're meeting. I just don't see any need for that personally.
So, can I make one statement? So we all agree, though, that it would be good to give direction to the manager to take a look over the next 8 months and refine our policy as to the purpose, so we can clear some of this up. Move from financial to more of the specific purpose. And we've had this conversation a little bit in terms of clarify. It's not just any 501c3 can just approach the town and ask for money. But do we at least agree on that?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so got one down. Commissioner Stewart.
Just to add to what Jim was saying, I think all of these people and organizations that have asked for money, and like I said before, we put it out there, it's an avenue for them to ask for money. We put the program out there. So this year, as far as us determining how we're going to spend the taxpayers' dollars and being fiscal responsibility and spending it, which is really important to me as a taxpayer and as one of the persons that's got to raise my hand and say, this is where we're going to send your money. It's real important to me, and it's important to a lot of the people in town that I've discussed with or have called me numerous times fussing about some of these things. So this year, I understand, because we have that policy out there, we have, send your application in, we'll go through it, and we will decide if or what we will give you. But just to add to that, next year, my suggestion is to end this program completely. That's all I have to say.
Next year, would you say that we need to figure out who we want to give money to? Don't ask, we just give. Say, how much do you need? Ask for, we will select, I mean, well, fire department's off the list now, but I mean, for Turning Point, I mean, Turning Point supplies a necessary need for our police department. That's still.
You'll include that analysis in your,
Well, and one
you know,
thing that I might suggest that would be one opportunity to bring back in August, if we need to bring it back in August, is if there's a contract that's needed with Turning Point for specific services, maybe we turn that into a contract versus having it be just a special request each year where it comes to the board and there's a difficulty in trying to figure out the value of that contract. So that might be one opportunity, and frankly, with some of the other
would apply
programs.
to others too, then, yeah. And that would make it more specific to what we're really getting out of it.
I think that gets to the question of, is this a donation or is there value received? And if there's true value received, then we can turn that into an MOU or some sort of document that says, here's what we're going to get. And it's not an open-ended invitation for a new ask each year that just seems to escalate and maybe not have the clarity or detail to it that we would all like to justify those tax dollars being spent. So instead of being more of a donation, it becomes more of a contractual agreement that if there's a service provided, let's refine what it is and get it on paper.
You know, he brought up a very good point of the history of this. I mean, the museum, we used to meet in the museum. So when we gave them money, we were supplementing their expenses at that time. We've moved away from there. Same way it goes for the women's club. We used their facility. We very rarely use it now. We have a nice facility here, which it's kind of like you kind of pull the money away. It's harder to take it away than it is to give it. So, yeah.
Yes, but no, because we did use egg extravaganza out at the Waxhaw Museum.
Okay.
That was an event out there. We used their whole facility for a whole day.
But we also provide lawnmower service every
Yeah, we also provide lawn care for them too.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, but no. I mean, and we do also at the women's club, we did pave their parking lot, but we use their parking too.
Right.
So
So we have memos of understanding in place with them. Now, we don't with
No.
the women's club, the museum, I get that. But that's the avenue he's suggesting possibly for pretty much everything at this point.
Correct.
And if the museum cannot bring themselves to the memo of understanding, then the understanding is you won't get funded. Or we won't, what's the give and take out of the relationship? What do we get? What are we giving you and what do we get? And obviously the mowing has a value, the gas, the time, the mowers.
It's not cheap.
and more.
Right, so we are giving anyway, so let's clarify it, let's lay it out there that this is what we're getting, this is what we're giving.
So we're gonna clarify all this stuff, but at the end of sometime between now and 5:45, we have to finalize this list. And so I have right now, Commissioner Stewart highlighted the Music Guild, Humane Society, Turning Point, and the Waxhaw Arts Council. Commissioner Fitzgerald asked to consider looking at maybe coming back in August on the Andrew Jackson Society and seeing if there really is a memo of understanding there. Commissioner Burl was against the Arts Council and Andrew Jackson. And the Women's Club, and I think you were for
I'll come out and say it
coming back on the MOU,
on the Andrew Jackson.
Jackson.
Museum, and for the amount that's there, and then for everybody else, I'm good with that, along with,
What does everybody else mean? The ones that Commissioner Stewart said, or everybody else, the whole list?
everybody on the list here that we funded, but I'm also, I agree with Commissioner Stewart to the point where next year we don't do any of it and we go to strictly a contract memo-based system of we recognize your value to the town, whether it be Turning Point and the police department or whatever, and this is what we need or would expect, and this is what we'll give in return for that need or expectation
So you want to do the whole list,
at the numbers listed.
you want to do the whole list, No changes to the list. We got that, okay?
With, with
I got
the
that.
caveat,
But you want to do the whole list,
with the
correct?
caveat of coming back for the museum.
Yeah. But you want to do the whole 35,000. You
That's
don't want to
correct.
take anybody out.
That's correct.
Okay. Commissioner Warren.
I think these people are relying on this money. As far as the museum, I don't think they need it. I don't think the women's club need it. I think everybody else needs to be cut 30%.
Which,
I think as far as saying they're relying on it, they should never put it in their budget and count on it until they have it.
Oh, yeah, right.
So relying on it is a different thing in my mind as far as,
How about expecting it?
well, they shouldn't expect it either.
so if I'm doing the math right, we have 3 that are thumbs down on Andrew Jackson. Commissioner Warner, Commissioner Stewart, Commissioner Burrow. Do I have that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And as a, well, we already reduced them from their original request. Jim, are you saying these amounts here? Because these are in further reduction.
Oh, okay, these, what are the percentage that these are reduction from? I mean,
This is funded at 65%
65%,
of their
so
original
35%
request.
we've already reduced them from the, originally started out, we took the fire department out, and we were up at 60-some thousand or something originally.
Yeah.
The original number with the fire department and everyone in was 81.
81.5.
So these represent a 35%
Then
reduction.
I can sit with these then, yeah, that's fine.
How's everybody else when it comes to that?
I'm good with the numbers that are there.
You want to go through the same exercise with the women's club?
That's fine. Okay. What else besides the women's club do we need to go through? I'm trying to see where, at the women's club.
So we're only talking about the museum and the women's club that we possibly won't finance?
That's what I'm,
Is that what we're
that's
saying?
what I'm looking at, yeah.
So I think what Fred was asking was, you want to do the tally, who's for, who's against on the women's.
Yeah, I'm gonna get there.
Okay.
Just trying to see what we've agreed on first before we get into where we disagree. So, is that the only other one right now? All right, go ahead, take over the women's club.
Again, using the same kind of logic in the fact that the funds that we give them are passed through or simply stated re-gifted. That bothers me a great deal, and I don't want to provide funds that they're going to redistribute in their name, whether it's a scholarship or anything else. If it's some money coming from us, it should come directly from us if that's legal. So I would say no to the women's club request, period.
Other comments?
We also have paved their parking lot recently. We have that understanding to use their parking lot, but that didn't come for a free price tag. That was expensive parking lot. I think that we've given them enough for this current year. I don't think they deserve anything else.
Okay, so there's
I'm in agreement, take them out
3,
also.
4.
And, yeah, well, again, my only question is, so 4 people just said what they said. Can anybody tell me what that agreement says that we have with them now?
So.
Of the 4,
No,
with
hang
all
on,
due respect.
hang on a second.
We got it on the email.
Yeah, so hang on one second. Greg, would it be okay if Kurt comes and explains the agreement? I think he's the one closest to it. Okay.
Sure.
Kurt?
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Do you mean the shared parking agreement or the agreement we have to use their facility for rentals?
So let's start with either one.
Okay. For the shared parking agreement, it specifies that we can, essentially, the lot is open for public use, the parking lot, anytime the Women's Club does not have a scheduled rental. And there's a sign they put up, they replace, it says Women's Club only, when they do have their own rental. And so that's the benefit to us, is that it provides, or it gives the town the ability to provide public parking. And the benefit to them is they got a great paved lot. As far as the specifics of that shared parking yes?
Is there any agreement on how much per year that we have to give them for that use?
No. Well, how much, I'm sorry, how much?
We have to
We don't lease it.
lease it for their use.
No, we paid the $35,900, I believe, to pave the lot. And at that point, there's no other financial contribution from the town.
What's the length of the contract?
Well, the initial term, I believe, I'll have to check, was for 1 year.
It's 1 year
So it's for 1 year.
without any obligation
Right.
to renew.
And it began in the November, December timeframe, so. I think it's been a great benefit for, the businesses have responded very well, and it's definitely getting utilized for its intended purpose.
So a very logical, and this isn't necessarily directed to you, if I were in their shoes, I would probably look at ways to perhaps charge for that parking lot if I have to make up shortfalls in money.
I mean, that's a consideration.
When did the contract start again, or the memo?
November.
November, December timeframe.
Of last year. So we're
Yes,
coming up,
it'll be a year. and-
Started right before the Christmas, we got it in time.
That's
for
right.
Christmas.
so November, December this year, we'll just go with December late, and then it's over, and they can do what they want past that, if they're a parking lot.
In theory, yes. They could do that if they,
Alright.
yeah, once the agreement ends, yes. And then the other one was in exchange for I guess the yearly funding that the town's been giving them, they give us 5 free rentals of the building, which we use for sometimes the town only uses it once or twice. We use it for Kaleidoscope, and we used it for the town Christmas party the year before. But then on behalf of the town, we allow other agencies to use it kind of under our name. So the Wax Entrepreneurs have used it. The North Carolina Main Street Center is going to use it in July, and the town basically lets them use that for free.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kurt.
Or did we use it 5 times?
No, we don't. We haven't reached, to my knowledge, we haven't reached 5 times, at least in the 2 years that I've been here.
Yeah, and that changes because we're sitting right here. Back in the older days, when we were at the museum and we had nowhere to be that could hold a large
Talking about
space.
the women's club.
Right, that's what I'm saying, that when we were there, that was it. That was our go-to place for larger meetings that we had to bring the town in on.
So, Greg, do we have a memo of understanding with the chief here? Is he going to throw us out, or?
We'll take them out of the budget.
Okay, so, does that clarify your question? Okay, so, now we're back to the Women's Club. What say ye?
I think he's brought up the point that there is connection between us and them, a mutual.
There won't be past November.
Right.
And if we
Yeah,
don't
that's
fund them now, there probably definitely won't be past November.
We may be creating a feud here.
We just bought a we just paid for a parking lot that we no longer going to have control of or use of.
There will come a day when there's maintenance required, and
I'm sure they won't.
Okay, so what do you want to do?
I still agree with Fred on this, is that if they're giving money, scholarships, for money that we gave them, I mean, in order to do that, they have to be specific that it's not our money that they're doing it, because that's illegal. I don't think until that's clarified and stuff, I don't think we can do it.
So I'm going to
In fairness to all the agencies, we didn't ask for any records until this year from a financial standpoint, and I think if you recall, the Women's Club, we used to audit their books for them through Greg Mahar time. I mean, so we have some education to do, because we kind of let them do what they were doing, and we were guiding them a little bit, so some of that's on us collectively as a town. But that said, go ahead.
No, I agree with Commissioner Burrow. I mean, if it's, regardless of what it is, if it's not legal or proper, we shouldn't do it. However, we should, make consideration to how do we help them or instruct them if we still are interested in it. But it's quite clear, come November,
Okay,
it's no longer our understanding.
So they have their accountant move the $4,000 from scholarships, and move it to a different line item, and all of the town's monies goes to different things to take care of the building. Do we want to fund it?
Let me ask a different question. If we get to November and they no longer want to make their parking lot available, is that going to cost us another $36,000?
Nope, we paid that once.
I know, but we only got a year out of it. So shame on us for making that kind of a deal, that we didn't get anything longer than a year.
Well, that's hindsight.
I know.
So we now know we only got a year out of it, and I'm trying to get us to
Right.
a decision here. We know we only got a year.
What I'm
We-
trying to get to, Steve, is the parking issue is really kind of moot. It doesn't have any bearing on
Well, the harsh reality is they might say we can't use the parking anyway
That's
after,
right.
even if we give them the
Right,
money,
some
but
other reason, that's right.
Well,
Commissioner
one-
Fitzgerald.
One suggestion is if you want to tie the parking to the money, tie the money to a new agreement.
Basically, releasing the parking lot for the money.
Fairness, if we get a use for it, pay for it, but pay a reasonable amount. You can,
Basically, that's what I was gonna bring up,
Sorry.
that we need to, tie it. I would recommend we do $2,500. We get the 5 events that we get able to use the building, that we can give it to other agencies outside the town, I guess. And that 2,500 includes a re-up for another year of use for the parking lot. Period. Done.
say it slightly differently. Why don't we allow our manager to make the best deal he can with the women's club and let us just get out of it? I mean, I don't think we should be trying to bait them or switch them or entice them or, you know, this is not something that we should be dealing with. We're dealing with, do we give them money or not?
We're on a very slippery, accusatory slope, so let's be careful. The parking is the parking.
Right.
We made a lousy deal,
Okay.
okay? So, I trust our manager and our downtown manager to figure out how do we keep that parking agreement together if we need it. That's separate and distinct.
How about if we just take them out of here and authorize our manager to put a line item in the budget for parking lot rental?
Or their interior space. If we get use of something, we should pay for it.
Or add it to another?
So what I'm hearing is there is consensus that you don't want to fund them.
Correct.
Okay. Simple. And then direction to the manager on resolve the parking. Are you in agreement with that, Commissioner Hunt?
Yes.
But there's one caveat here. If you remember back several years ago, the parking lot beside, across from the skate park, that contract came in, and I think the board, I don't know if any of you guys were on there or not, but that came in at too high of a rate.
Yeah.
So it was turned down. So now here we are, we're going to decide next year if they come back with the 9,000. Is that too much when you just turn someone down for, I think it was $2,500?
No, they want
that parking lot?
$800 a month or
They want
something.
But still, well, $9,000 divided
A
by
lot of
12,
money.
and we paved it.
So
That's $800 a month.
I don't recall what the exact amount was. What I do recall was that they wouldn't do anything less than 3 years. So, that was the sticky part, but I don't know what the exact amount was. So, just, are we in consensus on the women's club?
Yes.
Okay.
So from a budgetary standpoint, we will put that money someplace else, is what I'm hearing, but we're not changing.
From the Andrew Jackson and the women's club.
Okay.
Yep. Anybody else want to bring anything else up here, or are we good? knowing that we're going to refine this yet again and get to maybe more of the MOU thought process with the resties as we go forward. Are you okay?
Yes, the $2 figures that we are discussing here will go into contingency. So there will be an opportunity for some further discussion about how that's used once we have a proposal,
Okay.
or not used. So if it's not used, it'll drop into fund balance at the end of the year.
Okay, got that one. Next up, I think you had mentioned to me that you need resolution. Commissioner brought up the possibility of a stipend raise, because that would actually have to be a budget change. So I throw that open to discussion.
I personally think I'm paid reasonably well. Of course, I'm doing the least amount of work. You're doing 3 times what I'm doing, but
Well, when I first came to the board, we got a raise. We got a 75% raise so that we could cover our health benefits if we decide to select it for ourselves and for our families, and also got an extra $100 a month for use of our phones. I personally think that that was a good raise, and I do use the health benefits through the town of Waxhaw. Originally I was thinking when we're gonna do it that you get health benefits whether you want them or not, but we actually got the money. And then you had to subtract it out for the health benefit. The regular, people that work for the town, they get automatically health benefits, and they get a reduced rate for their families. They also get a funding for partial of their phones on certain people that work for the town, not all people. I think that we are competitive in our salary we actually get, so I don't recommend a raise.
I'm fine where we are.
No comment?
All right, so that's off the table.
But I'd like to
Simple.
thank Brenda for asking. That was a good idea.
I think those were the 2 biggies that you needed clarification on, unless you got another one?
Those were bottom line type
Yeah.
equation numbers. Certainly, some of the other questions that were asked have budgetary implications if we're not funding something.
Right.
So that sidewalk example was one where I wanted to specifically point that out, that community development block grant will come back to the board for your approval and inclusion in the budget. We just didn't, I think there was a May
It's timing.
issue there, so we didn't want to signal that we were ahead of the county.
Well, maybe we can go through and each of us, we have questions from the 18-page that you sent back, at least on the idea, knowing that we're going to cover a lot of these in August, where there's clarification. And so I'll get the ball started. Number one, regardless of who said what, are we doing stormwater or not this year? Do we need to allocate anything? And the reason this comes up, because it was brought up several times of the previous manager, and we get asked the question, is a stormwater fee coming up, going to be implemented? And it's just a matter of whether or not we're looking to do something this year, or just talk about it and get ready for next year. And there's the certainty to the taxpayers is why the question.
Frankly, unless there's some staff member who'd like to jump in here, I think that we've got plenty on our plate without trying to fight that battle this year. Is it something that needs to be done? Yes. I don't know the history of you know, some of that, but.
Are we up against a statutory requirement that we have to worry about? I guess is probably the big question. Okay. Perfect. And, you know, that's.
We'll bring that back for future discussion, but there are no dollars included to implement that.
I'm not asking to bring it for, you know, that's.
Well, and I think
Yeah.
it's a valid question that we all need to schedule and talk about in a future session, but we're not there yet.
Yeah, okay, second question I had, and there's confusion. As a board, we all got put in a bus and shown the trees and all this stuff, the poor engineering design and all this stuff, and we were led to believe that that is a program that was gonna start. Warren actually quoted us a figure of $250,000 a year in perpetuity. That's why I asked the question. Where are we with that? Are we starting to budget for that? Is that something, you know, that we have, that started? I know Curitan was the one that was the most vocal. You know, is it in the budget? Is it not? That kind of, you know, just clarification. Is that a program we're in the midst of? What?
Yeah, let me clarify to the extent I can, and then if I need to look to Todd for additional comment, certainly get that. First of all, we are not unique in that situation. That has happened in a lot of communities, and it's certainly nothing more than a trade-off between how you want your tree canopy to feel on a certain street and how sidewalk reacts to roots. Now, what you learn moving forward is there are certain trees that do much better beside sidewalks than others. And so what we would like to do, I think, is go back and review currently what's on our accepted street tree list. Make sure that we've got that nailed down as to what the better trees are and what trees are not as good. So that's the first step, is to really make sure that from this point forward, we've done a good job to make sure that those issues don't reoccur. That being said, I don't believe that the amputation option is a good one, because if you go in and you completely remove all the trees that are there, you're going to create a bigger community issue than trying to address.
That was
it.
exactly what Curitan brought up.
So, an annual sidewalk replacement cycle should include certain number of panels of sidewalk that we go out and replace. We will have to adjust that over time as the neighborhoods age and the trees get more mature. But my suggestion would be not to try to tackle some big fix, because number one, it's going to be costly. The public will not, in some cases, appreciate it. And, you know, the incremental fix is better from a lot of different areas. The $250,000 number, I'm not sure what the basis might have been for that. That might not be too far off. There are other communities that spend a couple $100,000 fixing sidewalks each year, or grinding sidewalks to try to make them smooth. So that's not a crazy number. That's a number that could be pretty accurate. I'm not certain that we're there or anywhere close to there yet. That'd be accurate, Todd.
So more to the point, though, we've stopped the hurt going forward, though. We've changed the code. We're not going to allow those trees anymore.
Yeah, I think there are several things you can do. One is you can look at width of sidewalk and width of the green space, the utility strip, as we used to call it. I think now we call it something else.
Planning strip.
planting strip, we call it planting strip, because we don't like utilities to be in the planting strip. But, planting strip width absolutely comes into play, but really probably tree selection is very important.
And I guess to the mayor's question, there is no money in the budget for that this year.
There is some money to address sidewalk issues, but we don't have a line item that says Curitan.
We're not there yet is the point.
Right.
Okay.
Got it, thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Another question, or clarifications, the answer back on the facade grant, is it economic development or is it historic preservation? It was always historic preservation. We were asked by Mr. Wood to slow down on economic development because there's too much on the plate. And so the facade grant, while there has been discussion, we've always had it as a historic preservation program, not economic development. One could argue perhaps with the brewery and Neil Gaiman, but that was directed at how to restore it or make it look in the period, not necessarily for an economic development incentive. I'm not aware of any formal economic development incentives at this time at all. That's a comeback when we're ready with an economic development plan.
Yeah, my suggestion would be, if the board would like to monitor that, I do believe that there's an opportunity, even though it's not been fully utilized in past years. The effect was the money just fell back into fund balance. So it didn't get expended, it didn't get held in some departmental fund, so it was properly used. I think that the opportunity will probably come forward this year to use a large amount of that money, if not all of that money. You may want to reassess how you do that going forward and what the goals and objectives are, but I would suggest that there will probably be at least one this year that'll come forward. So it would likely use up a lot of that money.
Okay. I have a question on there. Do we give it facade ramps for residentials? I mean, most of what I saw in here.
We have in the past.
I don't see a whole lot of benefit in Waxhaw for residential facade grants. I mean, we don't have any deteriorated old houses that need to be fixed up. I mean, we have buildings that need a high amount of maintenance. I mean, I saw the amount of money was given out. There was certain people that were every year that were back.
So the facade grant is directed towards anything within the historic district.
Right.
Homes, or businesses. So that's how they qualify. If we want to change that, then we have to go back and change that policy.
And the age of significance.
I mean, paradoxically, I live in a house that was built in 1890, but I'm not in the district. Not that I would use the money if I was, honestly. I mean, that's my personal preference.
Well, you can ask to join. Never mind.
I wouldn't do it if I was.
Never mind. Section 10, compost facility, is it in the budget or isn't it in terms of the operational part? And I think you said Todd would address that. Just part of your day-to-day stuff. Yeah. Okay. Very good. All right. We'll just go around the table. Commissioner Warner, do you have some additional questions you want to ask?
I have nothing other than I really appreciate the 18 pages here. That was very good.
Commissioner Stewart? Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Hunt?
So I appreciate the new manager coming in, obviously in the middle, handed a budget that you didn't write and so forth, and getting it by the horns and moving us forward. I do look forward to the retreat in August to kind of get your feedback on what we need to tighten, twist, change, and so forth. But thank you to you, and of course, thank you to all the staff for submitting the work and bringing the budget home.
And did everybody get their dates back to Kelly in August? So you got them all, you've heard from everybody. Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, I think, there was one date that might work that, for everybody, and it was like right in the middle of August. So I can't remember if that was a Monday or a Tuesday, but it was not a Friday.
Monday or Tuesday. It was the 14th or 15th.
So if you just want to put a temporary block on that until we can make sure that that's gonna work. But that appeared to be an option this morning.
And we're talking single-day retreat, right, one day?
We have not discussed, well, we did discuss this morning, but we have not solicited your input or feedback yet as to whether you wanted to do one day or if there is the need to do more than one day. We can certainly start with one day, and if we need to come back in September and do a second day, or another half day, we could do that, if that works.
Well, you probably have more experience on this than us. If we're going to consider, even remotely consider, something that needs to be on the ballot in November, vis-a-vis a bond, referendum or anything like that for infrastructure, parks and all that,
The county typically will need to know that, and I'm not sure what the Union County position is, but by September,
Okay.
early September.
so we need to resolve those things in August.
So what we'll do between now and August, actually, is we're gonna talk with the county as to their normal process if there were to be a bond referendum, and I'll use the word if, and find out what their dates are. In the month of June, I have a firm who will be looking at our debt capacity and helping us to assess what our debt capacity might be. And they'll look at high, low, and medium options. And then we'll be working on some capital projects that feasibly could be paid for with debt. You normally would not pay for operational items like cars and trucks with GO bond debt. So you would do that with a different funding source. But certainly capital, so roads, parks, public facilities, those are generally the three big categories that a community would look at. And then we would see how those various facilities would fit within those three categories. Just to give you just a quick snapshot, because we do have a couple minutes, unless you want to move to a different budget topic. Bond language, if you took it forward, would be fairly generic, and it would not say that you intend to build this park, but it would say, do you support money for parks? So that's how a bond question, if it came forward, would look.
Thank you. Mr. Burrow, do you have some additional questions?
Not a question, a couple comments. First off, I appreciate the opportunity to send the questions in, and I greatly appreciate the effort that went into answering them. I'll probably have a couple comeback questions on some of the answers, but this is not the time or the place. I thank you all for doing what you did.
Commissioner Fitzgerald?
I would like to just say the same thing Commissioner Burrow said. Just thank you for doing all this work. It's a lot of work, and I appreciate it. And I think we're ready to go.
Let me recognize Kelly, who kind of took the lead role in assembling the document, and then each of the department heads for their contribution. Some had to have more input than others, and so I want to say thank you to the department heads for that, and to Kelly for really assembling it under a pretty tight time frame to get it back. So thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for sharing it across the board. That's very helpful. So, any other questions, any other input you need from us to finalize the document?
I think we're in good shape. So what we would do, based on the conversation tonight, there is, in my estimation, not a need to have a work session ahead of the meeting on the 13th. So June 13th, we have another topic, I believe, for the Buxton study. Is that correct? So
That's correct.
Kurt had set that up, so
Yeah.
there's a 4:30 work session, and then we had some time allocated in case we needed a budget work session, but from hearing the conversation tonight, I don't think there's really a need for that.
So just move that into the main meeting.
So what we will do is, in an adjustment to the budget, the two allocations that were outside agencies will be moved into the contingency line. That effectively will not change the bottom line, but it will change that one departmental line by several $1,000s. And that flexibility will still exist should there be some sort of agreement or change come August. We won't spend those dollars for anything else, so.
Any other questions? Who do we see to, if we want to get rid of our fat face and get a different picture up there? I'm just speaking for.
I think the clerk's office,
We'll take care of it.
Okay, thank you.
one thing that we do intend to do this year when we
Got a Mean Street.
print the budget is to probably bind it in a different fashion than what you've seen in the past, so that it'll be
Have a sign.
a nice document to take if we were to do a rating agency presentation, and if we needed to have that distributed. You may see a little bit higher expense on how we do that this year.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to close the work session. All those in favor?
Aye.
Adjourned.